So that's sort of the first thing I like to address is you really have to take your time, do your research, and find a pageant that sort of fits your goals and what you believe in. For me, pageantry has opened so many doors. I've been able to connect to the Gambia and become a Goodwill Ambassador through pageantry, through Miss Black USA. I've been able to meet people from all over the world. I've been able to raise money for different organizations with children's hospitals and have the opportunity to just connect with people and share my story. And the one thing I like to share with people is, when you win that crown, it's not necessarily about the crown. I'm Celi Marie Dean without the title, without the crown. I already had these passions to make a difference in my community and to really represent these things. But what I realized was that crown, once I put that crown on my head, it just grabbed so many more people. And it gave me a bigger platform and a bigger territory to cover. And so that's sort of how I see pageantry, is it's just another platform and venue to really expand on the things that you're already doing. And also it's helped me, I believe, become better with interviewing, with being able to present myself, how to, conduct myself in those situations. And so it definitely has a lot of skills that I was able to pick up and learn from, and a lot of people that I've been able to meet and opportunities that would not have been there if it wasn't through pageantry. And, of course, God first, but this vehicle was the one that was used in my life to make those things happen.
Okay. All right, a couple more questions, and then we'll go to the phones. Now, you mentioned that your grandmother is from Liberia, and you visited Africa quite a few times, from what I understand. What do you try to accomplish with each trip there? What is your goal in regards to traveling there?
Wow, so it's really, there's different goals. Like I've traveled there for mission trips. I've traveled on some other trips with a very close girlfriend of mine who is also a Goodwill Ambassador, who started her own company called the Dream Girls movement. And we went one year and did a mental health initiative and awareness campaign in which we worked with the young people and ended up taking graduate students from my university, University of Maryland, and we brought them down there for a 3-week experiential learning trip and connected with the youth, went around and did mental health education and awareness and volunteered in the psychiatric unit. That was one of the trips. On another trip, we had the opportunity to look at the educational system in South Africa when we went there. And so it really just depends. But in everything, whether it's going over to different countries within Africa or in Europe or wherever I go, my goal and my passion is really to connect with people, to hear their stories, to share my story, and to really just leave an impression on whoever I am meeting with. And so that's the main thing, is to connect with people, because I found that in life, some of the greatest teaching moments have been when I've traveled and just hearing other people's stories and connecting, and being able to just share in those experiences are really something you don't learn in a classroom. It's something that you can't learn within the four walls of your home until you go out there, whether it's in another community or out across the country, and actually talk with people and hear their stories and be open and share your own. So it's kind of what I look forward to when I'm traveling.
And I think that's pretty cool. I mean, and like with me, as a black man, as an African American, my focus is more or less here in the United States, because I have to go all the way back to about 1865 to trace my roots back to Africa. But for you, you don't have to go back that far. I mean, you have, relatives, who, just recently, who, are from, Liberia or from parts of Africa. So you still have a connection once you go over there, or do you still feel a connection when you go over there?
Yes, I do, and it's interesting because even when I talk to some people who, like yourself, feel like they have to go a little bit further to trace that, once you actually go over there on the continent, you realize there's such a warm embrace, and that's not in every country. So I just want to make certain Africa is so large, and each country is very different. But my experience with West African nations has been that the people have always been very warm, very welcoming. I'm very excited to meet me and the people that I travel with, and open to share their stories.
Mm-hmm.
It's not always the case that way, and I think, one of the beautiful things about that is it sort of starts breaking down some of the stereotypes, because, I don't want to get too much in the race thing, but with what I noticed, having connection with both being African American and being African, I hear both sides of the story, and I think a lot of times there's a disconnect between the two cultures for various different reasons, and we all have, our reasons how we see Africans, how Africans see African Americans, but there's so many similarities there. And I think traveling overseas, a lot of people who have, especially African Americans, they come back with a different experience, having been embraced, having been welcomed. And I think that kind of catches some people off guard, because here sometimes the stories are not that way. So it's a beautiful experience, and I felt welcomed, I felt warm, I felt that I was one with the people, per se. And I think it's if you have the opportunity, that everyone should go and have that experience.
Okay. All right. 347-202-0215 is the number on the Talk to Q radio show with former Miss Black USA and author Celi Marie Dean. Let me go to the phone lines, and let me go to the New Jersey shorelines and bring on Ray. And Ray, how are you doing today?
Hey, how you doing tonight, Q?
I'm doing well. And did you have a question or comment for Miss Dane?
Well, yeah, I've been listening, and I think that all the work you've done and all the paths you've been in, all the experiences you've been through are real positive, and I think that, we need more positive people that we can look up to, and particularly young women can look up to, and I appreciate and I can respect all the work that you've done in other areas. But what about the black community? Do you have plans to help these young black females, because they can really use someone like yourself with intelligence and well-spoken and, just very well-rounded, and maybe they can help get themselves together on some of the issues that they may have going on?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for that, and I appreciate that. It's funny that you mentioned that, because before actually traveling to Africa, in high school, I started volunteering at a local community center here in Minnesota over in North Minneapolis, and eventually they ended up hiring me, and I ended up running my own girls group. And North Minneapolis is one of those areas where you have a lot of young women that are they're hungry. They need, like you said, those positive influences, and it was a very eye-opening experience for me. I had sometimes, my girls fighting. I had to break up girls. I had shooting going on outside, or some of my girls just had these stories that would break your heart that you couldn't believe. And so just to that is most definitely, that's where my heart is in the community. And for 2 to 3 years, I actually had my own girls group where I sat down and I had sessions with these young women, and we would talk about relationships, we would talk about self-esteem, we would talk about sex, love, about all these different things, and I would take them around to community events. For instance, when the Black Business Association was having a meeting, I would take the girls there so that they could see other people that look like them, that were networking and holding higher positions and different walks of life that they weren't exposed to in their community. And so that's something that's definitely still dear to my heart. I actually put together my own pageant at this community center in which I had 13 young African-American girls come in, and I worked with them for a year, and we had speakers come in, and we started with self-love, and we talked about resume building and health and education, and we did photo shoots, and at the end of the year for Black History Month, they got to present themselves on stage and walk in evening gowns and answer question and answers. And so it was an amazing experience for me, and I definitely agree with you that it's still needed. We need that in our community, and so it's definitely part of who I am, and it's still something that I hold dearly in going out in the community and addressing my African-American sisters as well as my African sisters. if that kind of answers your question, something that I plan to continue to do from here on out.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that question, Ray. And let me travel to the 601 area code, Jackson, Mississippi, which is my hometown. And let me bring on Eminem. Eminem, what's going on?
Hey, what up, Q? What up, Radio World?
And I see you're calling from that that encrypted number, so I can assume you're probably not in Jackson. You're probably somewhere in South America or somewhere like that. But, inside joke, Miss Day. But
Gotcha.
Eminem, do you have a question for Miss Day or a comment?
Yeah, I have actually a comment then a question. I wish this interview would have been a little bit sooner because I would have selected Liberia instead of Ghana. I'm trying to get my team to sponsor a water well to get dug. It's going to take us about a year to raise the money, but that's what I plan to do.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, but so that's that. I really admire anybody who who try to do something in other countries, especially the motherland, because because of the history of the country, without even really going into all that, it's like it's a disconnect. So, and I don't think I'm just speaking for myself. I'm not going to feel complete unless I connect it some kind of way. So, speaking of a pageantry, I saw Miss Mississippi speaking of some program to get wells dug, and then I went to the Root program, and I want to sponsor one myself. So I like, well, hey, that's a way to connect. And
that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
I love that.
And my question for you is, and it's an amazing platform, and just pageants in general, because I'm trying to get my younger daughter involved. My older daughter participated one time and won, but I was going to ask you, like, as a teen, when you were going through the ranks, so to speak, did you feel a lot of pressure from, just trying to stay positive and doing positive things? And also, how did you stay focused with so much peer pressure, especially, growing up in you from Minnesota, is that right?
Yeah.
You're right. Pressure growing up in, pretty much a larger city.
Yeah, great question. And I love that. I love your desire to give back, and I just commend you on that well that you're doing. And once you're done with that one, you can definitely swing by Liberia.
Okay.
Had to add that in there. But I understand what you're going through, and especially with your young daughter. And it was difficult. And one thing I share with young women is, a lot of times I've come in contact with a lot of young girls and even women that have said, well, you're beautiful and you're holding these titles and you have so much confidence. But in reality, I struggled a lot, even in my teen years. I was doing the pageants, and even though people were saying, oh, you're so beautiful and you're so pretty, I had a lot of self-esteem issues, stemming back to my parents' divorce, stemming back to the fact that I was a multi-descent, Liberian, and then I'm American, but I'm light-skinned, and I did struggle a lot with loving myself and those self-esteem issues. And one thing I think that really helped me to stay focused was having my parents be very active in my life, like you're doing with your daughter, just continually to reinforce who she is. And I don't know what your belief is, but who God says she is, and just always being there for her. My parents divorced, but one thing I commend my father for is he was at every pageant. I mean, I would call him the day before. He would complain, why didn't you give me time to get my suit and get ready? But then he would be there, and that meant a lot to me. I couldn't see him every day, but the fact that he supported me in some of the things that I was passionate about meant a lot. And just that continual reinforcement of her worth as a young woman, of her value, and things like that. I think that's necessary because she's going to go through that. It's something that we just all go through. But as a parent, the best thing you can do is be supportive in those positive things. Continually reinforce who she is, who God says she is, and showing her other examples of women